My name is June. I'm standing on the balcony of my luxurious penthouse suite in Honolulu, the warm Hawaiian air caressing my face as the ocean stretches out endlessly before me. It's hard to believe that just a short while ago, my life was completely different, filled with the weight of a toxic family. The memories flood back, and I'm transported to that fateful night. It was close to midnight, and I'd just finished setting up my small but tidy house for a family gathering. The late afternoon light had spilled through the kitchen window earlier, highlighting the crystal glasses on the counter. The dining table, usually unused, was dressed in white linen with a centerpiece of fresh lilies and roses I'd splurged on from a local florist. The scent of the flowers filled the air, and I hoped my mother would notice the detail. I'd spent weeks finalizing the menu. For my mom, I'd chosen chicken parmesan, for my dad, lasagna, for my sister Lily, grilled salmon, and for my brother Ryan, steak. I'd even ordered a triple-layer chocolate cake that cost more than my entire weekly grocery budget. I'd moved from room to room, straightening chairs, adjusting picture frames, and wiping already spotless counters. I wanted this night to be a reminder that we were still a family. As I caught my reflection in the living room mirror, my hair pulled back neatly and my deep green sweater bringing out my eyes, I smiled, imagining the warmth of seeing them all walk through the door. The clink of glasses and the sound of laughter filled my mind. I checked my phone for the delivery confirmation, and everything was on schedule for Saturday afternoon, hours before the 5 p.m. arrival time I'd given them. But then, as I sat on the couch with a cooling mug of tea in my hands, I opened my laptop to check a few work emails. That's when I saw the unread message from an unknown address. The subject line was simple, for June. I almost dismissed it as spam, but something about the way my name was typed made me hesitate. My fingers tapped the trackpad, and the email opened. There were only 2 lines. Watch this video and find out how your family really treats you. Attached was a single video file. My pulse quickened, and a dozen reasons not to click it ran through my mind. But curiosity got the better of me. The video player opened, and at first, the image was grainy and the colors muted. It took a few seconds for the scene to sharpen. I recognized Lily's kitchen with its bright cabinets and scuffed wooden table. Around it sat my parents, Lily and Ryan. Wine glasses and beer bottles were scattered between them, and their faces were flushed from the alcohol. I leaned closer, my hand tightening around the mug. At first, the sound was low, but then it grew clearer. I heard my mother's voice, light and casual, just before she took a sip of wine. We only really like June when she sends us money. The words hung in the air, and I felt as if I'd been punched in the gut. My father lifted his bottle in a mock toast and laughed, a deep and careless laugh. Yeah, the more money she sends, the more we like her. They all burst into loud, unrestrained laughter. Lily leaned back in her chair, wiping at the corners of her eyes. Oh my God, you're terrible, she said between giggles. But seriously, it's so funny watching her try to dress up. She has zero taste. She looks pathetic in those outfits she picks out. I looked down at the sweater I'd chosen so carefully for tomorrow. Ryan shook his head, grinning. And I can't believe she's having her birthday at home instead of taking us somewhere nice. What's the point of having money if you don't spend it on us? She's probably just too afraid of big crowds. Lily added with a smirk, and more laughter filled the room. Ryan then shrugged. The best part is we don't even have to give her expensive gifts. Honestly, I don't want to give her anything. Lily jumped in eagerly. Right. She gives us way too little anyway. All she covers is rent and maybe throws me $100 or $200 extra. It's not enough. I felt my stomach twist. I sent her nearly $1,000 every month on top of her rent. My mother nodded as if approving a business plan. We need to figure out how to hint she should take better care of her family. Make her feel guilty about not doing enough. And then my father sealed it. He raised his bottle once more, his eyes glinting. To our little ATM. The clink of glass rang in my ears, and I didn't even realize my hands were shaking until the mug slipped from my grip and hit the rug with a dull thud. I sat frozen, the word ATM echoing in my head. The ache in my chest was sharp, a new kind of anger that cut through the years of self-doubt and sacrifice. I thought about all the teenage shifts at the diner while my friends went to football games, the scholarships I'd fought for so my parents wouldn't have to pay for my education, the freelance projects I'd taken on instead of going to parties, every rent payment, every emergency transfer, every time I'd said no to something I wanted because they needed more. And for what? So they could toast to how much they liked me when the checks cleared. I knew I couldn't let them do this to me anymore. I opened my travel browser and typed Hawaii. Flights left at 4 a.m. on the morning of my birthday. It was perfect. I booked the most expensive penthouse suite I could find in Honolulu, a place I'd never allowed myself to dream about before. Next, I called a locksmith. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Change every lock. It's urgent, I told him. He took down the details without question. Then I pulled up the catering invoice. The total of $800 flashed on the screen. I called the restaurant, confirmed the order, and changed the delivery address to the downtown homeless shelter. The coordinator on the other end sounded surprised, then grateful. I ended the call and sat back, feeling a faint trace of satisfaction for the first time in years. They'd show up expecting a celebration, but the door would be locked, the food gone, and I'd be thousands of miles away. The alarm went off at 2 a.m. though I'd barely slept. My suitcase was already by the door, packed with clothes I'd chosen for no one's approval but my own. I dressed quickly, pulled my hair into a loose knot, and slipped out into the dark, quiet street. The Uber driver didn't ask questions, and I didn't offer answers. The ride to the airport was silent, except for the occasional turn signal and the hum of tires on the pavement. By 4 a.m. I was at the gate, boarding pass in hand. For the first time in years, I was going somewhere without carrying someone else's weight. The flight was long, but strangely calm. I watched movies, sipped bad coffee, and let the steady roar of the engines drown out every lingering echo of their voices from that video. When we landed, the warm Hawaiian air wrapped around me like a long-lost friend. By the time I checked into the penthouse suite, the afternoon sun was starting to set over the ocean. The floor-to-ceiling windows framed the view like a living painting, but my attention kept drifting to the phone in my bag. I knew it was 5 p.m. Back home. The first call came from my mother, her name lighting up the screen, then my father, then Lily, then Ryan, one after another. The relentless vibration on the nightstand seemed almost alive. I let each call go to voicemail. When the ringing finally stopped, the text messages began. We're here. Where are you? This isn't funny. Answer us. We're waiting outside. I scrolled through them slowly, imagining them standing on my porch, their confusion turning to irritation, and then to panic. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, and then I attached the video of their own words and laughter. I typed only one sentence, away from the toxic family. I hit send. For a moment, I watched the little delivered icon appear, knowing the message had landed in all the places that mattered. Then I powered the phone off completely and set it aside. The silence that followed was absolute, and I let it carry me into the next breath. In the days that followed, I filled my life with things I'd always told myself I couldn't afford. I ate breakfast on the terrace with the ocean in front of me, ordered room service just because I felt like it, and wandered through boutiques without checking price tags. By the third day, my skin was warm from the sun, my hair smelled faintly of salt water, and I'd stopped checking the time. But then, when I powered my phone back on, I saw a message from an unfamiliar number. Hi, June. It's Ava. Can we meet just the two of us? It's important. I'd always liked Ava, Ryan's girlfriend, though we'd never been especially close. Something in her tone made me agree without hesitation. We met at a quiet cafe downtown the next afternoon. She arrived looking more nervous than I'd ever seen her, scanning the room before sliding into the seat across from me. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice low. I nodded, waiting, as her hands curled around her coffee cup. "I'm the one who sent you that video," she said. For a second, I just stared at her. She nodded. "That night I was at Lily's place. I went to the bathroom, and when I came back, they were all talking about you, laughing, calling you an ATM, making fun of your clothes. I started recording on my phone because I knew you'd never believe it otherwise." The memory of that grainy footage tightened my chest. "Why anonymously?" I asked. "I didn't want Ryan to know," she replied. "But after you cut them off, I started seeing him for what he really is. He didn't care about you losing contact. He only cared that his rent wasn't being paid anymore. So, I broke up with him." I felt a surge of unexpected gratitude. "You didn't have to tell me this. But I'm glad you did." She hesitated before leaning closer. "There's something else. They're angry, June. I've heard them talking about ways to shame you publicly, posting things online, twisting the story so you look like the selfish one. They think if enough people believe it, you'll have to come back to defend yourself." The air between us seemed to sharpen. "Thank you for warning me," I said, steadying my voice. "I'll be ready for whatever they try." And for the first time since this all began, I knew I meant it. True to Ava's warning, within a week, I started seeing them outside my office. First, my mother stood near the entrance, pretending to look at her phone. When I walked past without acknowledging her, she called out, her voice trembling just enough to sound pitiable. "June, please, just 5 minutes." I didn't stop. Security caught the exchange and escorted me inside. Then came the messages through mutual friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years, suddenly checking in, asking if I'd really abandoned my family. The guilt was neatly packaged, designed to slip past my defenses. When that didn't work, they got bolder. My bank called to alert me to multiple failed attempts to log into my accounts. The representative confirmed the attempts came from my hometown. I changed every password, set up new security questions, and added 2-factor authentication. One afternoon, as I was leaving work, I saw Lily leaning against the hood of a car across the street. She didn't say anything, just smirked as if daring me to approach. I walked to my own car without looking her way, my heart pounding but my steps steady. After that, security insisted on walking me out most evenings. At first, I resisted. But then I realized it wasn't about fear. It was about refusing to give them any opening to twist the narrative. No matter how many tactics they tried, I didn't respond. I wouldn't give them the argument they wanted or the chance to paint me as the aggressor. I went home each night to a locked door and the silence I'd fought for, holding on to it like the most valuable thing I'd ever owned. Each failed attempt on their part only solidified my resolve. Whatever they were planning next, I was determined to be ready. I was no longer the person they could take advantage of. I was free, and I intended to stay that way.